Year in and year out, the greatest and biggest entertainment releases ever happens around November, when the new Call of Duty game comes out. Fanboys queue for hours to be the first to get their hands on this annually renewable IP, which is heavily marketed and launched with midnight parties all around the world. But before there was first-person shooters, before the days when kids on the internet could scream obscenities and homophobic or racist slurs at each other with glee, there was a different genre of game. These were Doom clones. Doom itself wasn't the first, but it was the game that launched it all. Sit back, grab your controller, and get ready to be pwned, you noobs. This is RetroVertigo, gaming with less than 17 bits. Hi everybody, welcome to RetroVertigo podcast episode 3. It's 3, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it is 3.
So far, so good.
We'll start up. I always forget the numbers no matter which podcast I'm doing. You know how hard it is to keep track of multiple podcast episodes?
Yeah,
DC
numbers such as 3.
Go podcast 3. First we'll start off with a swearing warning. Yeah, there's some people swear and there's often veiled isms in there as well. Many prejudices against women and other things. But we should introduce everybody. I am John. We have Ben.
Hello.
Ked.
Ed.
Is that me? Hello.
Way to fuck things up already.
It's Ed for the record.
Brian.
Cowabunga dudes.
And Kieran.
Hi, everyone.
Kieran is a noob. This is his experience. Ben missed out on last week, and apparently he wants to hijack the podcast and get his 2 cents in about Sonic. So let's let him do that first.
Is that okay? It's only going to be like 2 minutes, and I'm sure it might have been discussed last time, but...
Hold on, let's ask our audience. Audience, any objections?
Thanks, audience. You guys are awesome. I love you. Right here. So, in my... Just to round off Sonic, and the difference between Sonic and Mario. In Mario games, for me, you're always rewarded for trying to do what Mario can do, which is jump and get around and use the suits and use the power-ups and stuff. Sonic, you are punished for doing what Sonic can do, which is run fast. And I was playing a few Mario games, playing a few Sonic games, and this became very evident to me that this was the case. So just after the Mario podcast, I started playing Mario Galaxy 2. And going through the first few worlds, I was like, yeah, exactly what Mario is like. You know, you're going through all these different worlds. You're using all these different power-ups. It looks really good for a Wii game. And then it gets to World 7. I think it's World 7. And it becomes fucking annoyingly, fucking horribly difficult.
Nintendo hard.
It becomes, well, I could always forgive Nintendo for being Nintendo hard because at least there's some sort of sense of enjoyment in beating the levels. And I point to this one level in particular. You're on Yoshi and you eat the stupid chili thing.
To go fast?
And you go fast.
Up the wall?
Yeah.
I know the level you're talking about. That's where I was told, stop playing this game. You sound like you're murdering me. I'm in the fucking lounge room. My wife was in the bedroom watching TV. I'm going, fuck you fucking stupid game, you fuck! She said, stop playing this now.
Maybe it's to do with it going fast. Maybe it's just to do with it. I don't know.
Maybe that's the Sonic homage level.
Well, I gave up.
Yeah, I never finished Mario Galaxy 2 because of that level.
Thanks, Nintendo, for making Mario like Sonic and...
So, on to this week's episode, now that Ben, after going to America to score crack, has scored his crack and come back, had his 2 cents about Sonic. Today we're going to be talking about the first-person shooter. In particular, early first-person PC shooters, the only true way to play first-person shooters until the Wii. in my opinion.
Get a mouse, man. I want my arrow keys.
I want my point at the screen and shoot like in the Wii. That's what I want. That's the best way to play a first-person shooter. Unless, of course, yeah, we'll get onto that. With the main concentration on all the populars, I guess, Doom, Wolfenstein, and I think they were the only two first-person shooters ever made.
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right.
And 2010, where there were 104 released every week. So what is our friends of RetroVertigo's experiences with first-person shooters, and how basically the only thing that's left on computer games now begin? First-person shooters being the only thing that actually gets released on a weekly basis now.
And consoles, man. It's all of all variations on something. You're doing something for some sort of duty as well.
Yeah, it's all. That's all there's left. You have now on consoles, and even I guess PC games. Although no one plays PC games, like we always say, Ed's one of the last 7.
Look,
I've upgraded from console to PC.
Upgraded. No, that's going back.
Downgraded.
That's like saying you upgraded from car to horse.
I personally welcome this trend. I'm a big fan of first-person shooters. Like for me, they're pure gaming. Just it's all about fast reflexes, reacting quickly, trying to like see things before they happen and that kind of thing. It's for me, it's like that pure adrenaline gaming experience. So they're definitely my favorite type of game, and that's probably why I still play PC games instead of console games.
And the teamwork aspect as well.
No, I hate that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's the only reason I've stuck with Battlefield 3 this long.
Yeah, I played that for a while, and I know we're skipping way ahead. I played that for a while, but I came back to Call of Duty because I love the fact that you could just run in as a lone gun and play run and gun the whole game and clock up more kills than your opponents.
The summary is Kieran likes to play with people, Ed likes to kill people.
Damn.
Ed likes being the sole winner, not sharing his victory with anybody, I think.
Yeah.
I find it more rewarding to come out as like best of 16 players than like best team of 2 teams. I don't know.
See, I'll repair a tank for an entire round if it means we'll win. You know what I mean? Like I think that's the difference too between the two games, is that the Battlefield series tends to bring a bit. I think it attracts people who would rather work as a team, and COD's great for getting in there by yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
It's true. There's definitely a very different type of person online playing Call of Duty as opposed to playing Battlefield, especially on consoles.
It used to be, but far out, man. The COD kids are growing up and they're starting to invade Battlefield.
When I play COD, I definitely get the feeling that I'm like twice the age of anyone else in there, though.
Yeah, you probably are.
My 10-year-old plays COD, so he's probably the oldest person on COD aside from you, Ed.
Yeah.
All right, but we began in, I don't know, how old am I? 50? In the early 90s, I believe, with the first-person shooter becoming popular.
If we take it back then, that's probably, I think, with Wolfenstein and Doom.
Yeah, I remember.
It's the time when I go back from being a kid who plays video games to a gamer.
I can't really remember where I played Wolfenstein or how I played it, but I know that everyone our age has played Wolfenstein 3D.
Yeah. I remember everyone played it. There was like a demo that came out that it was the first level, like the first 10 levels of the game or something, and I think that's what most people had. Well, not the full game.
Yeah, the first episode.
The first episode.
Yeah, it's the same with Doom. They released, it's like a shareware game. They released the first third of the game, and then you pay for the rest.
We didn't have a PC when we were growing up, and I don't even know where I played Wolfenstein. But I definitely played those first 10 levels.
Yeah.
You probably did what I did. You go to your friend's house and you're like, "Hey man, how's it going? So, can I play Doom?" 2 hours later. You want to do something else? Nah, this is great.
Yeah. You go back to your homework or something like that. I'm fine. I'll just let myself out when I'm done.
But for the time, Wolfenstein was just crazy good. I don't think it's possible to overstate how revolutionary that game was, and how, just that, having that 3D view, which now is laughable that that's called 3D, but back in the day, being, it had those secret rooms and all of that kind of aspects of the gameplay. It was just amazing.
And everywhere except Germany, where it was banned.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder why, man.
And it started the trend for first-person shooters. Like, it's okay as long as who you're killing is German people. Like, Nazis are okay to kill.
That went for years. Like, right up until September 11th or something like that, when it became better, okay to kill Nazis, but better to kill people in the Middle East.
Yeah.
RetroVertigo gets political.
This is
a topical podcast.
We talk about how games affect real life, and
we raised the bar on this episode.
Did anyone play? There were a bunch of mods for the game at the time. I played one that I remember that was Wolfenstein, but all the characters were replaced with like Street Fighter characters.
Oh, wow.
I remember there was
and there were like naked ones and stuff, like all that kind of thing.
I remember that
game.
Tell me more about this naked one.
It was really good graphics. Like,
I didn't realize they made mods for PC games. When did this start happening?
It's a new thing.
Oh my god. It just started in 1992. Wolfenstein was like, it's one of those games that, even though prior to it there was quite a few other games that had the same kind of idea, but Wolfenstein was the one that launched it all and made it really popular, I guess. Because prior to that there were other first-person games.
Maze War.
What?
Maze War.
Yeah, no,
1975. Hello, is everyone? Have we forgotten already?
And Spasm.
Space Sim.
But I'm not talking. Sorry, Kip. Go.
I was going to say the first third-person shooter I can remember playing was RoboCop 3. I think it was.
Oh, fully, yeah. But that was a single-player adventure, yeah.
It was, yeah, and it was terrible.
I could never pass the ninja. You had to fight the ninja, and I could never pass him. I was like, look at this guy.
Yeah.
Isn't that like the first level?
How slow this game is, and why is this guy moving so quickly? But no, before the Wolfenstein 3D, there was quite a few first-person kind of styles of games, like the single screen shooters like Operation Wolf.
Yeah, shooting galleries.
Yeah, shooting galleries, like what's it called, Duck Hunt.
Yeah.
Duck Hunt was the first Wii game.
Yeah.
But there was also things like the who made the TSI role-playing games and
TSI, yeah.
Those role-playing games are good,
Yes.
and they're still every now and then one of those sort of things comes out. There's one recently on the PC on Steam. You can get one.
Oh,
It's
really?
a D&D based, like those old D&D games.
Is it like tile-based movement still? Like those?
Yeah.
Those games were like so far behind because you moved one tile at a time and you could only turn 90 degrees. And
Yeah.
I think probably was it Wolfenstein 3D that first allowed you to have free movement? I guess, I don't know, 92 that was released.
Probably, actually. It was built on ray casting technology, according to the Wikipedia. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good. It was that Sega
The
ad?
blast processing.
Yeah, ray casting technology. Just make these things up. But what the hell? In the Nintendo version of Wolfenstein, Nintendo replaced the enemy attack dogs with giant rats.
Yeah, I read that as well. I'm like, why?
We won't replace the Nazis or the swastikas on the wall, but we can't have people killing dogs.
Yeah, I don't know.
Makes sense to me.
Did they actually change them, or did they just say they're not dogs, they're giant rats? Like, is that
No idea. I didn't play
Nintendo.
Wolfenstein on a console.
I played Wolfenstein on one of the consoles. I don't know, the current gen consoles. I can't remember which one I have it on though. Xbox, PS3, or Nintendo. I do have the game, and it's terrible. Really terrible.
Yeah, you can't go back and play it. At the time it was just. Yeah. Did anyone ever play the sequel, Return to Castle Wolfenstein?
That was
the sequel, as in the one on the Xbox.
I don't know. I played it on the PC. I can't remember when it came out. Actually, I'll have to look it up.
It was very bog standard shooter though.
I think it was pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, back in that time, I think it was pretty good for its day. If you went back to it now, it'd seem like a 10-year-old game.
I played it, and I was like, meh.
It's when it came out. I remember it was like it was one of those big like hype train kind of things where it was amazing, but it's like the hype train, everyone got on board, and it was actually not that bad for the time. But if you even played it a year or two later, I think it was already.
I think that's the problem with first-person shooters in general, though. They become dated pretty quickly.
It had a really good single-player campaign and a really long one, if I remember, like a really long, in-depth single-player that was quite good. But I don't think it really took off. But it had some moderate success.
Now we move on to things like that. Like there was also Doom. Like Wolfenstein 3D kind of launched the genre and computer gaming in general, if you really think about it. And then Doom came out, a year later?
Yeah, yeah.
If everyone played Wolfenstein, bloody everyone played Doom.
Yeah, totally. So they id Software, I think, made Wolfenstein and Doom, yeah?
Yeah.
So I think what happened was they were working on Spear of Destiny, the sequel to Wolfenstein, and then John Carmack, he kind of isolated himself. He went off and he started working on his own engine for the game Shadowcaster. And by getting away from the team working on Spirit of Destiny, he was able to start really pushing the engine and start putting things like texture map flaws and different lighting effects and all this sort of stuff. So by the time it came to start working on Doom, you know, they had this technology that they could really start, you know, exploring the genre on a deeper level.
Oh, that's another one that I've downloaded or have on one of the many consoles now. Like I got I think it's on Xbox. I have that, and that one I can play a level of. That's Doom holds true a little more than Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein is kind of a first room. Well, this is shit. Turn it off. Doom, I can get to the same place I always used to get to, past the first level, and then well, this is shit. Turn it off. Because I don't know what Doom had really like. You know, it's probably the things like that, like the graphics and the lighting and everything like that.
I think, and the music too.
Wolfenstein
3D. I think Wolfenstein. I remember clearly one of my clearest memories of Wolfenstein is the menu music. That sort of soft sound blaster sort of thing. It was great.
Sound blasters.
Don't
blaster sound card.
Don't turn your nose at Sound Blaster, man. I love some of that Sound Blaster music. Listen to it now, and it's sort of, you know, meep 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 meep. But, you know, and you're like, oh, but it's still like, you know, that's great. And that first level of Doom, that music is still etched in my brain.
How's it go? You hum us a few bars.
No. It's too complicated.
So I think like Doom was the one to have like the whole deathmatch thing though, yeah? Like did Wolfenstein have the
Was it Doom?
multiplayer LANs and all that.
Over the IPX
Doom
LAN,
did.
man. Over the IPX LAN before there was TCP/IP as well. Yeah, actually, I remember going to my friend's house in high school and all of us playing Doom on
Yeah.
like all staying at his house. And we were so cool. We would buy like a case of Coke.
Yeah, right.
14 or 15 years old, and we'd stay up all night and play Doom.
Yeah.
Was it
So
anyway?
I think it was so like the deathmatch was so big that apparently the rumor goes that companies had a lot of trouble because all the people on the network were playing Doom instead of doing work.
There's all in one of the Microsoft Office things. There's an Easter egg where you can in Excel where you can do something and it opens a full copy of Doom.
Really?
Yeah. It's like go to a certain square and type in a certain thing, and a certain cell and type in a certain thing, and there's a full version of Doom built into Excel. And then you can play that over networks and stuff through Excel. It's quite hardcore.
But why was Doom so popular though? Because like back in those days, everything they didn't even have the term first-person shooter. Like everything was a Doom clone from that point onwards.
Yeah,
like,
I remember that too. Doom clones. I was still calling things Doom clones in like 2000.
yeah. Like,
Oh, Doom clone. Oh, okay. It's a Doom
I
clone.
think it looked really good from
Yeah.
starters. Like it looked really good. It looks shit now, but it looked really good.
It was really like compared to Wolfenstein as well. Obviously, it's really dark and legitimately scary. I mean, you're fighting these demons, and you've got these massive space guns and shit. It's really a whole different thing than running around some brightly lit corridors. They had dark rooms, and you didn't quite know what was coming at you. So I think that the atmosphere really, was something that was new.
And you did things like you'd open a door and there'd be 20 imps behind there. And you'd hear them all scream, and then you'd scream because all you had was a shotgun.
Yeah, right.
Interesting. I don't. Like I said, I never actually had a PC, but I do remember having these LANs back in those days, and PCs were so expensive, and it would be such a difficult thing for all these guys that I knew to convince their parents to let them take their home computer to their friend's house.
Yeah, right.
He's like, let me take this $2,000 piece of equipment to my friend's house, Dad. We only have one, and if it breaks, we're not going to get another one. But come on, Dad.
You kidding? That's a top of the line 286.
It's got 64K of RAM and a 1 megabyte hard drive.
Cost me $3,000.
Yeah, but I think we've kind of hit the nail on the head that a lot of Doom's appeal was just in the atmosphere and the environment. Like the game didn't really have any storyline or anything to speak of, did it?
Well, you were a space marine.
This was the days where the storylines were in the instruction manual.
Yeah.
So, and no one had the instruction manual because no one ever bought the actual game. They just got the shareware version, and then if one person bought it, they would copy their 3 discs for all of their friends.
I remember off by heart the storyline in the instruction manual in Doom. It went thus: there are demons. These demons are bad. They stink.
Are you making this up?
No, something like that. Yeah, it was like.
Oh my god.
There are demons. These demons are bad. They stink.
Actually, I remember one of the things about Doom was the whole 3D thing where it actually became things were above you and below you. And I remember playing Doom a long time ago and walking around a corner, and there's it's in the first level. You go around a corner and there's one of those fire shooting bad guys, and he's in the distance but high up on a ledge.
Yeah, right.
And I remember thinking to myself as a kid after playing Wolfenstein, just shit, how do I hit that? Because you couldn't.
How did you hit him? Did you have to go up on a ledge?
You have to go up to the same level, right?
Oh,
No, you could just stand far enough back, you shoot, and the bullet would go up there.
Yeah, you just have to line the crosshair up. You wouldn't have to actually look up, but if you line the crosshair, the bullet would just go straight up to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, everyone had cheats and would get full guns, so you could track the path of the rocket launcher as it's going up there and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's how they got around that, the whole looking up and down thing. It was just as long as you were pointing in the same general direction was close enough. The other thing about Doom, which and Wolfenstein and early first-person shooters, which like people starting playing games now wouldn't realize, is you couldn't jump or duck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember in Doom as well, there's like some hidden rooms that are over like ledges. You know, there's like a river or whatever around them. And the way to get over it was to just sprint, hold shift and sprint, and you would that was jumping.
Really?
Land on
It's
the
like
other
auto
side.
jump or something.
But you just like, because the game wouldn't be able to keep up with you moving that fast, and you fall, so it wouldn't register you falling into the death pit below you or whatever. And it was built into the game, you know, there were hidden rooms built into the game that
Yeah, right.
they just were exploiting the fact that on that 286 it couldn't really handle sprinting. And that's like, in the olden days, in Doom, I guess because of the atmosphere, you would walk. You wouldn't hold shift and run. You walk everywhere. But in today's games, you run everywhere and then move slowly when you want to, as opposed to Doom, which was the complete opposite. You walk everywhere and then shift when you need to, shift run when you need to.
Yeah, right.
Doom was like kind of it's a really, really different to games today. You know, first-person shooters today, but it's still credited with kind of launching the genre, which is the most popular genre. It's amazing how different it was.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, I
not,
think it was only held back by kind of the technical limitations, though. Yeah, like it was really advanced for its time, but that was as far as they could push the genre. I think it wasn't until maybe Star Wars or something that they started putting things like that we know as standards, like looking up and down and that sort of thing.
Star Wars Dark Forces.
Yeah,
It was terrible. Even at the time, I remember it was terrible. It was the later Star Wars first-person shooters that were actually good. That one was, oh my god.
Yeah. The things in Doom really resonated, like particularly like with the weapons. So shotguns in every game since Doom have owe something to the Doom shotgun.
is it like you can shoot things really well when they're close to you, but
No.
far away they're really hard? Is that
That was the idea, but no. It was how far away they were, they still took the same amount of damage. Actually, if I remember correctly, the spread graphic was larger. It would still only hit one bad guy or whatever, but the graphic was larger. You know, like if you shot a wall far away, there would be a lot of dots all over the wall, but if there was a monster there, it would only hit one of them, and it would do the same damage no matter how close you were.
So they weren't quite there yet with the shotgun.
Yeah, but yeah, everything, like it's a staple for first-person shooters. Every first-person shooter has a shotgun, and they all kind of work in that Doom, the way that Doom would have wanted it to work, but didn't. Because even things like when you progress to Unreal Tournament, which was originally a mod for Unreal. That has no standard guns, you know. It doesn't have shotgun, machine gun, things like that. But every gun in it is the equivalent of one of those first-person staples. Like the flak gun is just a shotgun,
Yeah.
and the whatever they're called, the minigun or whatever, is just a machine gun and things like that. So yeah, they've progressed so far, and it's so different and evolved to so much more. But they're still just basically the same Doom games, I guess.
And like the chainsaw as well. That's the other one that you see in other games, which is also directly related to the Doom chainsaw.
Oh wow!
Even
So
with Gears of War and stuff, like that Gears of War, the chain gun.
Yeah. Well, that's a third-person shooter. That's a different genre.
Yes, I know that, but it's still we can still see that influence coming through.
But, what?
I was going to say, I think the focus nowadays, though, is a lot more on realism of the guns than it was back then. Because back then you have, your shotgun, but now you have your whatever spaz shotgun, or like it has to be a specific real type of shotgun.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
12 gauge. It can't just be shotgun.
Yeah, no, but it has to be a specific make model of shotgun that actually exists, and you could purchase in a store, you know, if you lived in America.
I'm going down to the shop to buy this gun because I like it in Call of Duty.
Well, you know.
But then after Doom, I guess the next biggest first-person shooter was Duke Nukem 3D. Now, who remembers Duke Nukem 3D?
Who doesn't?
Oh, I should never forget.
I remember they had it with the Wide World of Sports soundboard mod.
Oh, God. I like the day that Duke Nukem 3D came out on Xbox Live. I got it. You know, like it was a 9.0 Xbox Live game, man. Come on.
I think we went straight on and started playing multiplayer, didn't
Yeah,
we?
yeah, man. That was so awesome. We were playing Call of Duty and we clocked up like 100 hours of Call of Duty. Was it Modern Warfare?
Yeah.
First one. And moved to Duke Nukem 3D. We went from the car to the horse. It was awesome, man, because in that game, it had not only jumping, ducking, looking up and down, it had a huge amount of other things, like there was the jetpack, there was like jumping boots that made you jump higher, and it also had like a really robust multiplayer kind of thing where it had cooperative as well as death matches in it.
Well, so like team.
Yeah, you could play the levels together.
Oh wow!
But it wasn't like, it was really weird.
Doom did that as well though, yeah. Like didn't Doom have a co-op mode?
Doom 2 had a co-op mode, but not Doom 1.
Oh,
But
okay.
I remember in playing Duke Nukem 3D, like 8 players doing each level, and the thing was the levels didn't get harder if you played. They also, when you finished the level, it took you back to a level select screen,
Oh, okay.
progressing to the next level, so you'd have to manually select the levels. So I remember having LANs with Duke Nukem 3D and doing that, and all night just playing through the game, and it was ridiculously easy because there'd be like 8 players running around killing things. It wasn't well thought out at the time, I guess. That was 1996, and that's only 16 years ago.
Mm.
And
Wow, that's 16 years ago.
Yeah, only 16.
well, the average age of the gamer. This is when today's gamer was born.
That was revised. 32 is now the average age of the gamer.
If you play online, you realize how untrue that is.
Yeah, it's not verifiable by observation.
It's not quantitative, it's only
Yeah.
qualitative.
This is when today's Call of Duty player was being born. Was Duke Nukem 3D time, you know?
Yeah.
And they would never be able to play Duke Nukem 3D, and I wonder if like kids today have been born when I was young, and had like, you know, been introduced with Duke Nukem 3D, if they would still play games at all. Like I show my kid these games like Duke Nukem 3D, and he just laughs in my face and says,
That's shit, Dad.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's all I had. How about
But Duke Nukem, unlike Doom, the hero of the game actually had a personality. Yeah, like
you can
Doom was like a completely just blank personality, and Duke Nukem, he was like a misogynist. He was, obnoxious.
Playing Modern Warfare 2 or 3, I can't remember which one. There was a guy in the game in multiplayer with the name Duke Nukem, and he just had this Duke Nukem soundboard of like ridiculous things, and he just like spout off during the game. It was hilarious.
Oh my god! I've played a Call of Duty where the guy had Star Wars as his soundboard, and it was like frustratingly annoying. So I turned off all the sound. The Duke Nukem was awesome, man. You could look in the mirror and you could see yourself.
You can have a piss.
And you could have a piss.
Oh, what? Oh.
And there was also strippers in the game. Like the curtain goes up and there were strippers there dancing while all these like monsters were roaming around. Well, they were pigs. Pigs police. Like they were police that were pig men.
Yeah,
going around,
yeah,
killing stuff, and there's strippers in the background dancing, so it was realistic and everything.
You could shoot the strippers.
Yeah, well, why would you? I would sit down and watch them.
People were surprised when this game, when they finally released the sequel to Duke Nukem Forever, that it didn't go down well. There were strippers, and you could shoot them.
That's in 1996 it was okay to shoot the strippers. Why isn't it okay in 2012?
I don't know.
Yeah, we should have the same attitude that we had in like the 50s as well, you know?
Yeah.
Why evolve our attitude?
Why are they stripping and not cooking?
Why? Because there's a clock on the stove. The first-person shooter has come so far in, I guess, kind of such a short period of time. And it's not like talking about Sonic and Mario in the previous episodes. We were talking about how they've gone back to the 2D thing, but the first-person shooter hasn't gone backwards at all. The only thing they've done is tried to cash in and make sequels to things like Duke Nukem.
Yeah.
16 years in the making.
That worked pretty well.
Yeah, but none of them work. I can't think of one that worked. Where they made a sequel to something from a long time ago.
Doom 3, man.
Doom 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it popular?
Yeah.
About the only one that comes to mind.
That was probably the first-person shooter to really push forward graphics again.
Yeah, right.
That and Half-Life 2, but
Half-Life
a bit ahead of ourselves.
People always say Half-Life 2 was like the graphics thing, but Half-Life 1 was insane at the time, man. When Half-Life 1 came out, the cutscenes weren't there wasn't so much cutscenes, but you were walking around and listening to a story and spending so much time nothing, if you will. Actually, that's why I was never able to play Half-Life 1, because I didn't want to walk around and do nothing for the first half an hour. Able to get past the first half an hour.
It was all about the storyline and immersive gameplay there.
Insanely good graphics.
I loved Half-Life, and I thought to myself, this would be a game I could show my girlfriend, and she'd be interested, because it's not just blasting things away at the start. So I put it on, and it's like, gave her the controller, and she's like, okay, so when does stuff start happening? When do I get to shoot stuff?
God, it was...
Get into the storyline. You'll like find out about the world and stuff. So I don't give a fuck about this. I want to shoot stuff.
I remember that you needed like a 16 megabyte graphics card and 64 megabytes of RAM and stuff like that. Like insanely powerful computers to run Half-Life 1. And it was the same when Half-Life 2 came out, and I had to go buy a whole new computer for Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2. But those games are, did they really progress the genre, or were we still riding off the back of Doom clones in Half-Life time?
I think Half-Life was the first game where first-person shooters really took a step forward. In my opinion, it is.
In what way?
Well, graphically, it was better than Doom and Doom 2, and the storyline for me, it's just leaps and bounds ahead of anything else that was around at the time, and it keeps on getting better. It's not just a game where this is the premise at the start of the game and you play to the end of the premise, where it keeps changing. So it starts, there's the explosion, whatever, and there's aliens around. Then the human marines come in about 2/3 of the way through the game, and they're really hard to kill, and there's the ninja sort of things, which sounds, saying it out loud, really crappy. But at the time...
You sound like you're pitching Star Wars to a movie executive.
And that didn't make any money.
But you know what, actually, because I've got the Wikipedia open, I've just seen a word flash up in this Wikipedia about first-person shooters. Remember Quake?
Ah, Quake.
Yes.
Trent Reznor.
What?
Ah.
Random
Word
word.
association.
Banana.
Um, okay, fine. It was weird. It was the sound designer, music designer,
Oh, really?
Oh.
and that was a big gimmick about it. It was a gimmick because you couldn't really tell it was Trent Reznor.
One that we'll remember for years to come, obviously.
Well, I did.
But that was
So
a...
this was another ID game. So they just had the success of Doom and Castle Wolfenstein, or Wolfenstein 3D. But this was the first game to actually use polygons.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
I remember graphics cards back in those days as well. It was all important about what was your polygon count and stuff like that, and people would be able to rattle these things off on you. Yeah. So you got to get a River TNT because it does 30,000 polygons per second or whatever. I was like, I don't know what you're saying. Just tell me what to buy. just spouting numbers. But I went to Quake, I think a Quake 2 launch at University of Sydney. It was like a huge thing. They had like 200 computers there and stuff like that, and did a big. It was like the I don't know if you guys have been to IGN Black Betas for game launches now.
No,
Where
not
they
that connected.
where they play they let you play a game before it comes out. Like I went to the Gears of War 2 Black Beta. It was awesome as well. Cliffy B was there and he did a talk on Gears of War 2 and let us play an unfinished copy. But this Quake one, it was amazing. You could play multiplayer and there was 60 people playing it.
Wow.
And the biggest mind-blowing thing that I remember about it was people brought their own mouse or trackball. If they preferred the trackball. And the other really, really weird thing about it was that was the first time I found out that people were actually using W, A, S, and D to move instead of the arrows.
Oh, okay.
It was because before that in Doom and stuff like that, you move with the arrows.
It's
Yeah,
true.
I remember that and thinking, but why don't you use the arrows? Because there's arrows on them. It
Yeah.
shows you which way you're going. Why would you use the letters?
But it was the guys using the W, A, S, and D in their own mouses that were mice or trackballs. Some of them bought trackballs because they preferred that. That was so much better at the game than anyone else. And these were the first time they had ever played the game. And they were ridiculously good compared to me. just me. I was the worst there. Let's face it. I didn't get a single kill. And the thing they talked about with Quake that had never been done before in a first-person shooter, whichever Quake it was, Quake 2, I think, was every level was open to be traveled to at any time in the game. There was no finish a level screen.
Okay, so it was like a hub, and then you pick a level, is it?
Or what you do is you go to an elevator, and then you might have to go, up a level. You go up to the next level, and that was how the game was designed. Rather than having new sections of the game or whatever, the levels were actually floors in this giant building or something like that. And then you would get to level 7, and then maybe you would have to actually travel back to level 1 because you'd finally received the key that would open the door.
So it's like a kind of Metroidvania kind of style.
Yeah, that was
Backtracking.
before Metroid became a first-person shooter or whatever, and that was kind of Metroid-y. But if I remember correctly, the bad guys didn't respawn.
Yeah, right.
So
Interesting.
just be wandering back through empty corridors and stuff.
If you want to talk about the rise of multiplayer, Doom 2 was when multiplayers really went nuts, online competitive multiplayer.
When did
not Doom 2, Quake 2.
Quake, that was the one. That was where you could have 64 players in a game or something like that. It was insane.
Yeah.
So was that in software as well?
Quake. Yeah.
It was John Romero. It was one of the.
Oh, okay. Yep. So, because they apparently the story goes that Doom originally was supposed to have a hub and you pick the levels in the same way that you guys are talking about now. So you can kind of see that it's technology that has dictated where the genre can go.
It's true.
What you're capable of doing is limited by the technology of the time.
Well, that might even be a good explanation as to why for the first-person genre has kind of really stagnated in the past few years. Because there's such a high emphasis.
Talking about?
There's such a high emphasis on the consoles, and on a console the technology doesn't change like with a PC. So they can't make major changes on to how first-person shooters work. You can't add in things like, the ability to go backwards in levels, which was such a major thing, or the multiplayer, which was such a major thing to games now, because the technology is limited by whatever is on a console for, what is it now, almost 10 years, the consoles being how they are. The only thing they can do is how they use the technology, because even today's first-person shooter genre, there's a few really defining ones. There's the Call of Duty, of course, and there's the Battlefield people. So we've got a Call of Duty guy and we've got a Battlefield guy, and that's the way it is. It's like Elvis and the Beatles. You're either a Call of Duty guy or a Battlefield guy.
Elvis.
You can like both, but you only truly like one. Like you'll always like one more than the other. But then there's other types of first-person shooters, like Borderlands, which is the ones I like, and BioShock, which I really love.
BioShock was good, yeah.
I love so much the BioShock games. I've been waiting for Infinite for a year or however much has been delayed, and I really love Borderlands. But those games are still just Call of Duties with slight different things.
Yeah.
BioShock is just Call of Duty, but it's like a heavy emphasis on single player instead of multiplayer. And Borderlands is just Call of Duty, but there's a heavy emphasis on drops instead of, I don't even know what to compare them.
It's like an RPG though, yeah. It's more of a.
Well, just because you can build a character doesn't make it an RPG. Like, I really hate that comparison. Like, because that's what they say. Borderlands is more like an RPG, and it's like, wow, because I can spend points in a character, it's an RPG.
Yeah, I really don't like RPGs, and to me that just seems like an RPG, and that's the reason. I've played Borderlands, and it's okay, but it just feels like you're grinding. Like, it just feels like you're just trying to get more XP, essentially, to upgrade your character.
Yeah.
So that's why it feels like an RPG.
I felt the same way. It was just a constant grind just to get the gun that you found, an hour ago that you can't use because you're 2 levels too short or whatever. By the time you get to the level you need to use the gun, you've already found something better, which you want to get, and it's just a never-ending line of fetch quests and.
Borderlands totally is like a never-ending fetch quest, and then when you beat the game, you start again, and it's harder.
Oh god, really? I didn't get that far.
Oh my god, you've just put everybody off.
There's something that's been around forever. Once you beat Hang On, you start again. That's it's harder. Like the game scales to your ability, but man, like I don't play Borderlands like in that grinding RPG. It's I read stuff about how to succeed at Borderlands and things like that. And in Borderlands 2, there's like the best shield in the game you can get off one of the bosses, and there's a 1% chance of dropping it, and you can only fight the boss once every login. So people will like fight the boss, log out, fight the boss, log out, fight the boss, like for 5 hours.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, and I've never beaten a Borderlands game, like gone through more than once. I just get from the beginning to the end. I love the storyline. I really love the way it's delivered.
The storyline of Borderlands is great.
It's really well delivered. Like, there's no cutscenes or anything like that. And
I like the pretty graphics.
I really like that as well. The cel-shaded, unique kind of graphics that no other first-person shooter has. But actually, my favorite first-person shooter series is the BioShock ones. I love them so much. But they are really just, if Call of Duty had a hefty single-player in it, like, they don't. They get less and less single-player orientated as they progress through the series. Yeah. I would be more into Call of Duty if the single-player was a lot better. Like, that latest... I don't know which ones they are, man, because I'm so lost on them. One of the Modern Warfares, you can play for the first 15 minutes without pulling your trigger. Like, there's actually a video on the internet of a guy playing on the hardest difficulty the first 15 minutes of one of the Call of Duties without actually firing a shot. And, that's because there's not such an emphasis on the single player. The single player is more there to just get you used to playing in squads and going online and playing team deathmatch. That's
the single player is okay. I mean, it's on rails, so you don't really have much of you can't really divert from the main path or anything. So I guess that's true. I'm sure you could possibly go for 15 minutes without firing a shot. That's definitely true, but you don't really do that when you're playing. So I don't know.
Because I've always thought, it's like, why would you play it like that though?
Yeah. So a year after Quake was released, and 2 years before Half-Life, there was a little game called GoldenEye.
N64?
Yep.
The N64.
That brought
Has anyone heard of this game?
Not really.
What is this GoldenEye you speak of?
That's a movie, yeah.
I believe it was based on a movie.
that first shooters to the home consoles, and I guess it can be blamed for where we're at today.
If there was ever a game that you can just not ever go back to out of nostalgia, it's GoldenEye.
Yeah.
No, it's not playable.
For its time, though, it was awesome to get 4 people on a split screen because I don't think you could do that before.
No. The thing was the previous gen was the Super Nintendo. No, yeah, Super Nintendos and stuff were the previous generation of consoles. They had two ports, Super Nintendo and Mega Drive, two control pad ports. But you get the things to expand it.
Yeah,
Yep.
the four-way adapter.
The multi-tap, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Multi-tap,
Multi-tap.
that's fine.
Like, remember, Secret of Mana on Super Nintendo had 3 players, the possibility of 3 players, but you needed a multi-tap. And I seriously, I have never seen anyone who had a multi-tap. I don't know if it was just in Australia, but
No, we had a guy at school who had them. I went to his house and played Secret of Mana.
it's like such a weird thing to have. It's like having the Power Glove or something, you know.
Yeah.
What, did you go to Lucas's house from the Wizard?
Yeah, I did. I know the guy from the Wizard. But why the hell was GoldenEye popular, man? Because I hate it.
really
a theory about this. Before pre-GoldenEye, our time playing video games together would consist of us sitting at someone's house, eating junk food, maybe, and staying up late playing games. GoldenEye, a year after GoldenEye came out, I turned 18. So that started the time of sitting around and drinking and playing video games.
Ben's got it 100% right.
Alcohol. But I played GoldenEye. I used to hang out in this computer game store, video game store, and they had a Japanese copy of GoldenEye 8 months before it came out in Australia.
Wow.
And so me and a few of my friends one of our friends actually worked there, so he would just let us hang out there all day. And we would play GoldenEye in Japanese with no idea what the missions were or anything like that, and beat it on the hardest difficulty. And we're unlocking cheats because in GoldenEye, if you beat a level in a certain speed, you get a cheat. Unlocking cheats without knowing what they were doing because they were in Japanese.
So you see all the guys with the big heads walking around.
DK mode.
Oh, yeah.
How did I get it? In English, it was mind-blowing to me. Like, that's what I've been doing all this time. That's what it is. And it had things that other first-person shooters even then didn't have, especially on consoles. Things like the sniper rifle you could zoom in.
Yeah.
And
I remember shitting my pants when I saw that for the first time.
it was like,
he's all the way over there, but he looks like he's right in front of me.
zoom in.
And it had stealth aspects as well, didn't it? Like, I remember there was that snow level, probably one of the first levels. You had to kind of sneak around and take people out with silenced weapons.
Well, that was
Yeah.
In the 6 player, there were levels that had alarms. So if you did certain things, alarms would go off.
Yeah.
And it introduced the most important thing to console shooters, which was the screen looking.
But it also had headshots. Like it was one of the big things about GoldenEye when I would play with people, because that was another argument game. That's what the Nintendo 64 was. It was a recipe for arguments.
Yeah, and alcohol to that.
Where they, I couldn't reiterate enough to all the people I would play with. Aim your gun up, because when you're running with your gun, it's pointing a little bit down.
Yeah.
So continually, and it will keep drifting back down. So if you're continually pushing down on the 4 yellow buttons on the N64
Yeah.
control pad, like continually pushing down on them just a little bit as you run to keep the gun always pointed at approximately headshot level, you're likely to win. And they would forget. It also had something that was amazing. Strafe buttons.
Yeah, I was going to say that was for me the first time I actually got into strafing and that strafe circling thing. It might have been done before, but I think GoldenEye has really made that popular. Now you can't play first-person shooters without it.
You could do it in Quake and Doom and all those games actually, but you had to press a specific button or whatever on the
Alt.
Yeah, you hold Alt strafe. It was like but in GoldenEye it was just a button. So that was the other thing. Like you drift around the corners in GoldenEye using the strafe. You don't just walk around the corners. You drift around them. It had so many little things in it that were just like.
Is that the thing where you lean out and then you lean back in? Is that what you're talking about?
Instead of walking around the corner and then turning,
yeah,
which is what most people would do, as you're going around the corner, you turn and strafe.
Okay.
You push left if you say you're turning right, you actually strafe left and turn as you walk. Corner when you're already facing the direction, and it was that was like little things that I used to do to win all the time that other people wouldn't really get. It had these little things in it, GoldenEye, that other first-person shooters just didn't have, and if you could master them, you could really become quite good at the game. That's why I think it was so so popular. There was just so many little things to master in the game. It was like such a high level of skill on tiny little things. It was also first time in our lounge room or whatever on a 34 centimeter TV or.
Yeah, tethered to the N64 because there wasn't wireless controllers back then. You had to be
with the giant vibrator in the thing that made you control.
Was it you guys who knew someone who made a screen barrier to stop people from screen watching?
Oh, no way.
No.
I'm sure someone made. I don't know who they were. Someone made it out of cardboard, like a really crappy thing. They sticky tape to the TV.
Two people to lie on the ground,
yeah, two people lie on the ground. Other people have to stand up.
Oh man, see, that's how they need to make a licensed product like that, man.
Yeah.
Stop screen looking once and for all.
We used to play variations where you turn radar off, and have golden gun. That was single shot kill, and you'd have to play it because everyone would screen watch. You'd have to play it so. Tactically, you'd walk right into a black corner and just look at the screen so only you would know which room you're in. And then you'd watch other people's screens so you'd know when they're approaching you. And then you'd spin around and shoot them before they see you.
The thing I really pushed when we used to play GoldenEye is everyone would want the radar off. And I would say there's no point, just leave it on.
Yeah, right.
Looking at each other's screens anyway. And
it makes it more fun.
Screen, I never screen look, but actually everyone looks at your screen.
But you make it part of the game because everyone does it.
Yeah, it's like even peripherally, if you're so adamant that you're not looking out of the corner of your eye, you're still seeing your name pop up on people's screens.
Yeah, exactly.
I always just say, just turn on the radar, and I could tell where everyone is based on their position on the radar. It was like, you may as well. I don't need to look at your screen if you just leave the radar on. Just your levels. And, things like unlocking all the characters was really amazing. It was like you unlock characters and you could all pick the characters. And even though the modern belief is odd job is really unfair.
Yeah, right.
I don't really understand that because I find odd job to be the easiest to kill. Anyway,
okay.
I think that was because he was shorter.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you like I was saying before, you got to run and put your gun up a bit. If you're playing against someone who's odd job, you don't need to.
Yeah, right.
He's always pointed directly at his head. And I think Jaws was always the most...
his head was huge.
Yeah, because his head was so high, you would have to be basically running around shooting over everyone else's if you wanted to kill Jaws.
I thought the coolest thing about GoldenEye was the hit detection and the hit reaction. There's nothing better than shooting an enemy in the arse and watching him jump up and hold his arse.
Yeah, totally.
And then along the way, I thought that was really cool, and they continued it into Perfect Dark, but then over time, other games didn't pick it up, but it's starting to make a bit of a resurgence. Now you see it in a few games. But and then when you shoot the guy in the chest, to leave a red patch exactly where you shot him, all that sort of stuff was really
there was guys
at the time.
There was guys that wore hats and there was guys that wore helmets, and you could shoot the hats off some of the guys.
Oh yeah.
The helmet guys you couldn't shoot in the head.
That's right.
And then if you shot them in the head, there was a louder ringing sound that had more likely chance to make people hear from around the corner and stuff like that. GoldenEye, I fucking hate the game, man. Seriously. It's
now
I hate it then, man. I fucking hated it because I played it way too much, and it was just a recipe for arguments because people couldn't just thought, there was a big thing where you don't start with a gun, and so people would come up with rules where you're not allowed to shoot them if they don't have a gun. I'm like, that's fucking ridiculous. That's the best system. Why would I? to me popping your hand like an idiot. I'm just shooting you. And it's like people would get angry because you were guarding the armor, and there was always 2 armors on every multiplayer except the temple where there was only 1. And it's not that you were guarding the armor; it's just as soon as you get hit, everyone would flock to the armor to replenish the armor because you couldn't get health back. So the 2 things everyone would also always go for in that game was an armor, and I told people many times, go for the armor first, and then the best gun in the weapon pack you decided to play with. Always 2 occurrences of the armor and 2 occurrences of the best gun. And so people would be like, "Oh, you're guarding the armor, you're guarding the RCP-90 or whatever." It's like, no, I'm just getting ammo and armor, dickhead. Sorry, how about that? That's a good idea. That's a good tactic. You get it, and then play. Oh, you've damaged me and stuff. So just to keep it fair, we'll have
No. You have to let me win this game.
Hated the game because of it. I think the majority of the problems with it were the whole screen looking, and there was no way to avoid it. And it wasn't.
We just played like you just accept that, and it's just part of the game. And we didn't have like a ban on screen looking. It was just accepted. All right, we're all going to screen look, and that's it. It's part of the game.
Just turn on the radar, because
but it doesn't matter. Like you got the radar, and you got everyone's got the same advantage. There's no disadvantage to anyone.
I knew screen looking was part of the game, and the people who played, I never admit they looked at your screen. And so I would just say turn on the radar, and then at least they would have the excuse saying I saw the radar.
Here's the thing, though, man. It's 1987 or 1988, and it's not the era of massive TVs, and your TV is further subdivided into 4 screens. Of course, everyone's screen looking, because otherwise you're looking at like a 4-inch screen, basically.
Okay. But it wasn't until Halo 2 that I actually started liking console first-person shooters, because Halo 2 that utilized the Xbox network thingy.
Xbox Live.
No, not the Xbox Live. The one where you actually used a crossover cable.
Like a LAN?
Yeah.
System Link.
The System Link. So you could actually play on multiple Xboxes. And I was like, now it's like PC.
Halo 1 had that too, didn't it?
I don't know. It wasn't until Halo 2 that actually one of my friends lived with a girl that also had an Xbox. So we played team death matches where 2 of us on one TV and 2 of them in another room playing the team. And it made it so much better. I was like, now this is like PC first-person shooters.
But you're right, though. I was at a couple of mates' houses where we would drag our Xboxes across and cases of beer and everything else. And, you'd have like 2 people in each room. And I think at one point we had about 12 people together, and it was cool. It was as close to like a LAN as you could get on console.
Sounds awesome. You have to bring your TVs around and everything, though.
Fortunately, you might only have to bring a couple, although a few of us would be playing on a monitor, like a 27 little tiny monitor.
But, 55-inch plasma going, you guys going in there?
I was going to say, is that the goal of the console first-person shooter, though? To be as close?
I think early on that might have been a big part of it, but I think it's evolved into its own little sort of
Did we just lose
its own genre now.
Did we lose Brian?
I don't emulate PC anymore.
I'm here.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. You look at Halo. Halo, the point where the Xbox controller started to be its own thing in terms of controlling first-person shooter, and the PC gamers hate it. But now there's a lot of players who will use the Xbox controller and use the Xbox controller to play first-person shooters on Steam on their PC.
I hit the nail on the head. At the beginning, it was all about emulating PC first-person shooter, but now they've become their own little thing. And I remember one of the Call of Duties when it came out on Xbox and PC, rather than the Xbox emulating the PC version, they went the other way. And the PC version, you only had 12-player matches or something like that. Or 8.
Well, the problem with the Call of Duty games is they started a while ago building them for console and porting them over to PC. So the PC game often lacks what the console game Has.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you
rather
be
than-
shitty though as a PC owner? How could a first-person shooter be worse on a PC?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty ridiculous. When which one was it? Black Ops 1 first came out, it was I mean, very disappointing. It was completely unplayable for a few weeks as they had to patch it and repatch it to make it playable. It just didn't run. It was just like it just didn't run at all.
So what
it was,
the lead SKUs are the consoles now, and they port them over, do they?
yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Well, there's some certain especially in the first-person shooters, where there's certain games that are only for PC, like that. Is it Crisis, the one that
Yeah.
that you can't play in full spec, and you've
Yeah.
only just recently been able to play the second Crisis or whatever in full spec on current modern PCs.
Mhm.
Like that
Yeah.
one is obviously for PCs because it's just to show off how amazing the PC is.
If you can afford it.
Yeah, that's always been. You need like a $10,000 PC to get full spec.
It's not really worth it.
Like a server or whatever to play it in full spec. And I remember like that was amazing in crappy spec. And the version on consoles is the crappy spec version, and the PC one is obviously much better. But as opposed to something like Call of Duty, which is targeted to kids to line up at JB Hi-Fi around the block on their video.
Yeah, Ed.
But I think
You guys just don't understand.
the biggest thing to note with the Call of Duty games is that they're really just the same thing year after year, just reskinned. And that's, for me, that's what turned me right off. I knew after playing Call of Duty 5 that it wasn't, this is as good as it gets. It doesn't,
Which one was?
nothing changes.
They have multiple numbers and stuff.
There was
They have
one
different
point,
titles and
there was one point though where Call of Duty, I think it was it Call of Duty 4 or something, came out, and that really pushed the genre.
That was the last one to pretty much push it.
Because
That's right. Since then, it's as far as I can tell, it's just the same thing year after
Yeah,
year.
that's
And I mean, they haven't even updated the engine. It's the same engine, same, just different textures, and and it's no surprise that they can churn them out year after year because they really don't have to do that much by the looks of it. There's not
exactly the way I feel, man. We played Modern Warfare when it came out. Like, actually, we knew people. Ben and I knew people who bought Xboxes for it. So we could play online, and we would just, everyone would get home from work every day, and we would log on and play Modern Warfare all day, like 4 of us. And one of the guys we know, he bought his girlfriend a TV and an Xbox, so we could play 4 players or whatever, like just every single day, clocking it up. And then after the first year and Call of Duty, World at War came out, we put maybe 3 hours into it before, like, Ben and I were both, this is just the other game, but with different fucking textures.
Worse World War II weapons.
Just a fucking update.
an expansion.
Like, why didn't I pay $16 to download this? Why did I pay $90 for a retail game? Or $120 it was back in those days, like, for a retail game. And then, since then, actually, I got Modern Warfare 2 thinking, alright, maybe this will be a big update. Because now it's been 2 years since Modern Warfare. I got it. I played maybe once online on a New Year's Eve at Ben's house.
Oh yeah, we played those co-op things. That was alright.
Yeah, and then after that, I never played it again. Traded it in like a couple of weeks later because I was like, this is still just Modern Warfare 1. 2 years on, we're playing Modern Warfare 1.
Well, I put about 1,000 hours into Modern Warfare 2.
Far out.
It is
Holy shit!
no shit. It depends, and probably another 1,000 hours into the next one. Probably the next 2. It depends what you like. They are very similar games, and you can pretty much jump from one to the next and not lose anything. I mean, there's a story behind that. Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2 were both released by Infinity Ward.
Yeah.
And then after that, there was some falling out, and the company broke up. And then the next game, Black Ops, was produced by Treyarch, and that was a massive downhill.
Yeah,
It was a huge step back in terms of graphics. The first time, as I said, that when that game came out, it was unplayable for a few weeks until they patched it. And even once they did, like, just the, the sounds to the graphic looked so much worse. Like the guns sounded like they were cap guns. Eventually, towards the end, after about 150 patches, it was actually quite a good game. And then the latest one, well, not the latest, the last Modern Warfare one, which is Modern Warfare 3, which was pretty much the same as Modern Warfare 2, almost identical, but with improvements, basically just a better version of Modern Warfare 2. And the very latest one, which is Black Ops 2, I didn't even buy because I'm like, I can't put time into that anymore.
That's the one that is supposed to be really good. It's finally like a reimagining of the game, apparently, according to the reviews.
Mhm.
It was it's supposed to be completely different, and there's so much more to it, and a lot more depth, and blah blah blah. And I gotta say, based on my experience with console kids, if it was really that different, they wouldn't play it.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, right? Like the games, they review pretty well. Like the critics like them, and then people keep buying them year after year. So what is it? What's the appeal?
But the gameplay is still good. It doesn't have to be a revolutionary game that's completely different from the last game. Like if the gameplay is good and you get the same experience out of it, but now like it forces you to buy the new one, because if you enjoy the multiplayer aspect, then everyone's going to get the new game and you're going to be stuck on the old game, so you can't play it anymore.
Exactly.
That's totally it. Everyone buys it because everyone is going to buy it. And it won't be able to, like, if log on to Modern Warfare 1, if you still have it on Xbox, something that used to have 1 million players online every night, and you're lucky if there's 100 players online now. And because everyone has, that's however many years ago, 5 years ago, 5 games ago, and every year it's the same thing. It's not like a thing where they used to do. Like Call of Duty 3 was World War 2, Call of Duty 4 was Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 5 was World War 2, Call of Duty 6 was Modern Warfare. And they were going to do that, where they alternate between World War 2 and Modern Warfare. And it wasn't like, okay, there's a bunch of guys playing Modern Warfare and they will stick to Modern Warfare. They all just flip to the World War 2 one. And then the next year when the Modern Warfare comes out, it's not like, oh, okay, all these World War II fans will stick with World War II and a bunch will come to Modern Warfare and play it for 2 years. It wasn't like that. Just 100% of the people moved to the Modern Warfare.
Exactly.
So
I think a lot of people just look at the number and say, oh, it's Call of Duty 6 or whatever, the new Call of Duty. Like a lot of consumers aren't really aware of kind of what goes on in the game. They just see the new Call of Duty and then they just buy it.
Yeah, I think that's very true.
It's,
your average person's not really like Ed said earlier. People like Call of Duty because you can jump on as a lone gunman. You don't have to talk to anyone. You can still have a fun, good experience out of that. And so it really, like, when you look at it, Call of Duty probably has one of the largest, what you would consider casual player bases.
It's so true.
It's a tough casual game, though. Like, you get on there and you're dead in 2 seconds.
No, absolutely. It's not a casual game, but, like, a lot of people, the type of people who, I'll tell you this, like, people who like to play cricket on their PlayStation or their Xbox, they usually have a copy of Call of Duty as well. Cause they
We talked about this. We've talked about this before, and I wrote a blog on it once where everyone wants to be a hardcore gamer. Everyone wants to call themselves this hardcore gamer, and there are two specific types of genre gamer labels: hardcore and casual. No one wants to be considered a casual gamer, but in my opinion, everyone who plays Call of Duty leans more towards the casual than the hardcore.
What if I've clocked up 1,000 hours in Call of Duty?
Well, you're a hardcore Call of Duty player. You're a hardcore Call of Duty player, but you're not a hardcore gamer. Because what other games do you play?
Yeah, I play other games, but like,
Minesweeper, Solitaire.
I play Sonic on my iPhone.
I think the appeal of Call of Duty as well is that, like, it's pretty diverse, and we spoke at the start of this podcast about, like, 2 different styles, being the lone guy running and gunning and that kind of adrenaline fueled gameplay, and also having a more cooperative style of gameplay. And with Call of Duty, you can have, there's different game styles and different game types, and you can have both. Like, you can have capture the flag, or you can have I don't know what they're fucking called, the bomb,
use the bomb,
defuse the bomb, like, or team deathmatch. None of those styles I can really handle, because
the most popular one is deathmatch. But the team deathmatch and all of those ones, it's the same as in the Battlefield. Like, actually, I really love Battlefield. I love the Battlefield Bad Company series.
Yeah,
Um,
same. Best Battlefield, Bad Company 2.
Yeah, I played that so much, and then Bad Company 3 came out, and that was the thing with Battlefield players is actually they don't follow that as soon as a new game comes out, they all flip to it.
Yeah.
Still people playing Battlefield Bad Company 2, because in a Battlefield style player, there's even still people playing Battlefield 1943, you know.
Yeah.
In a Battlefield player, they find the one they really like and they stick to it, and there's large numbers of people who just stick to it. And you know,
I think
if there's only
community has a big part of it too, you know, like the people, you know, I've been playing with the same bunch of dudes now for about, since the original Xbox, we were playing Battlefield 2. And we've followed through onto the 360 and we're still playing Battlefield 3 now. You know, we're all, you know, a bit older, we're all sort of have a lot in common, and, you know, that's what'll keep me on it. That's what's kept me on it this long, you know, and I think, from what I see, a lot of people that play Battlefield, they are looking for that team element, you know, and so they look for people who have a like mind, and, you know, when they find them, it's sort of, that's what keeps you glued to it. And
a group of people you can play with regularly, yeah, because like in Battlefield, even though, how many players is it per side now? I haven't played it in.
On the console, it's only 12 a side.
Oh, that's the botch. On the PC, it goes up a lot more, but like,
yeah.
You can find it, even though it's 12 a side, which is more than Call of Duty, which is now, I think, 8 a side, but it was 6 a side for a long time. You can, even if there's 4 of you jumping into a Battlefield, you can still form your own little group, and, you know, you can have 3 groups of 4 all play together on the same side. But in Call of Duty, we experienced this a lot when we used to play Modern Warfare a lot. There was 4 of us playing every day, and then there would be 2 like blow-ins on our team. And even if those 2 were 2 friends, and so they formed their own little team, those 2 people not following the 4 would cause a loss.
Yeah.
You know, 2 people can cause a loss, whereas in Battlefield you can break off into like a few groups of 4. Or, you know,
interesting.
Like I run around with my brother-in-law in it, and we're just off by ourselves doing things like snipering, and he's guarding me while I'm a sniper, and we're just hitting bases from behind while another team is hitting it from the front. No communication between the other guys in our team, but it just works. And in Call of Duty, there's a lot less of that kind of thing possible.
Yeah, no, definitely. And they did a lot of things in Battlefield to sort of encourage that. You know, like say, people sort of being able to follow the program without having full communication, and particularly in Battlefield 3, you know, you can see how many other squad leaders have lit up, you know, particular flags. So you know, okay, well, there's 2 squads going for that flag. We should probably go somewhere else.
Yep.
Or, you know, they've done a few things like that. All in all, it's good. Like I think they delivered on 3. They gave the fans, particularly the console fans, what they'd been asking for a long time. But I think, you know, what they say is be careful what you wish for.
It's really good when they actually listen to what the players want, but it depends on how the what the players want is presented.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think that game makers should make the game they want to make, and if you don't like it, then don't play it.
Well,
otherwise you've got like a community project rather than a.
Well, that's what I mean. It depends on how it's presented, because if the community is not a very good community, it won't end up in a good place.
Yeah.
But there's under other things actually about the first person, we're neglecting things like you know, we talked about GoldenEye, but there were other first person shooters on, and are still other first person shooters on Nintendo that don't appear on Nintendo consoles, that don't appear on anything else. Things like Metroid.
Metroid Prime,
yes,
yeah.
Metroid.
So we're going to do a podcast eventually about Metroid, but because that is one of those major characters. But the thing we should talk about Metroid now is it is, like Brian was saying, like that Quake game. It's a first-person shooter, and it jumped to first-person from 2D side-scrolling platform.
Yeah.
And it went from being a 2D platformer to a first-person shooter that's puzzle-based rather than combat-based.
Yeah, it's about exploration, adventure, rather than killing things.
They do that really well, I think.
Yeah, and that kind of like triggers this thought process in my mind that you start to wonder whether calling these types of games first-person shooters is actually limiting the way we think about them. Like, why is it that a game is in a first-person perspective and then immediately it's classified as a first-person shooter? Like, isn't
Well,
like
it's got to be
first-person
first person.
like really? Like, it's not a genre. First-person is just a way of controlling the game more than anything else.
Even more than that, it's like if it's first person and you've got a gun, it becomes a first person shooter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what, like, because obviously Skyrim isn't a first person shooter. We were joking about it before the podcast, actually. That Skyrim and Arena and the other Elder Scrolls games are first person sorters. But just because Metroid you have a gun, it's a first person shooter.
Yeah, that's what it is. So there's two quantifiers for it. It's if you are in first person and you have a gun, then you're immediately a first person shooter. But then you go back and look at something like Portal, and is that a first person shooter?
Yeah, that's a first person shooter. It's
it is.
based on the Half-Life engine, the Valve engine or whatever it's called. I don't know what that engine is called. It's a mod or whatever on Half-Life. It's a first person shooter. You're shooting. You have a portal gun, so therefore you're a shooter.
Yeah, I think that's an exception though. It's you're not shooting anyone with the gun, like you're shooting the wall basically, and it's a puzzle game more than anything.
But why is that a puzzle game more than? Because like I only thought of Metroid because it's mentioned on the wiki. I'm looking at the first person shooter Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And it has a list basically like it just brings up all those, and this is where the history of first person shooters went when this came out. Metroid Prime was released in 2002 for Nintendo GameCube, a highly praised console first person shooter. But if you've played Metroid Prime and you talk or any of those, is there more than one? There's another one as
three.
well. Yeah.
Three.
We talk about the people like Battlefield people and Call of Duty people. Those kind of guys, like me included, actually, can't play games like Metroid, the first-person shooter. You can play like Kieran said, he's tried Borderlands and stuff like that. If you try Metroid Prime as a first-person shooter player, you just immediately think this is not a first-person shooter.
Yeah, actually, I did try Metroid Prime. I didn't like it.
It's like it's a quick drop, like if you're a first-person shooter player and you pick up Metroid Prime, you play it for a little bit and then go, no.
See, I came to it as more of a fan of Metroid.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Thought that I don't know. It was blasphemy. Didn't like it at all.
I haven't been able to play through more than like 10 minutes of one. As soon as I get into them, I start playing them. I'm like, no, this is not a game.
So, full disclosure here, I don't play any single other first-person shooter except for Metroid Prime. I can't play Call of Duty. I can't play Battlefield. I can't play GoldenEye. I can't play Doom. I can't play any of them. But I can play Metroid Prime.
Yeah,
I can play them all, and I like them all.
But then you're kind of an exception. That's
pretty exceptional.
Your wrestling name, the exception. Because other than that, there's we talk about revolutionary kind of first-person games and stuff like that. Have any of you guys played Far Cry 2?
Yes.
Yeah, for about 10 minutes.
That game, look, I really enjoyed Far Cry 2 for the first 20 hours I played it.
Exactly. Go on, I know what you're going to say.
And then I finished the first 20 hours and I killed the guy that I had to kill that I thought I'd been killing. And it said, now go here. And I thought, this is where I'm going to go see the end game cutscene. And I went through a screen and it loaded up a new map the size of the one I had just finished exploring. And I just went, fuck that. This is Far Cry 3. In my mind, I just finished Far Cry 2 and this didn't happen. But that game had something that other first-person shooters, single-player first-person shooters didn't have. That huge, absolutely ridiculously large, open-ended kind of level design.
Yeah.
Where it's more akin to Grand Theft Auto kind of sandbox type gameplay. Where you wander around and get, find missions to do and you upgrade your character by buying new guns and stuff like that. See, if that was in the third-person view, no one would consider it anything like a first-person shooter. They would more put it into the Grand Theft Auto genre, whatever.
Exactly, and that's what I was kind of hinting at. That I think that we need to start calling these games Doom clones again, and stop calling them first-person shooters, because it confuses really what the genre's all about. Like, I don't know.
Even
This,
Call of Duty are not really. The Call of Duty 4s and the modern Call of Duties are not really built around being like Doom, and playing the single player and stuff like that. They're more online targeted games. Battlefield is another one that it's an online targeted multiplayer only kind of thing, where the single player campaign is solely to prepare you for multiplayer.
yeah.
It's a completely different game to a Call of Duty, and they get lumped together because of the whole allocating the genre of first-person shooter. Now, you're either a Battlefield guy or a Call of Duty guy, but what you really are is you're either a small, tight-knit little squad guy, or you're a giant Battlefield guy.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the list of first-person shooters in Wikipedia, and there's a list of maybe, I don't know, I could see how many, but there's like hundreds in this list. And so I think it's just a problem when you're trying to categorize all these hundreds of games and describe them by 3 words. Like, of course, you're going to get things that are a bit outside of that standard. But I think most of the games in there probably qualify. Like, you're running around with a gun and shooting people. That's it. You know, games like Portal, definitely, obviously, you know, it's a first-person shooter, but it's not like any other first-person shooter. So you've got to say first-person shooter / puzzle. You know?
Yeah, why can't it be first-person puzzle? Like 2D side-scrolling platformer. There's 2D side-scrolling platformers, and they're they are all like that. You kind of hit the same problem with 2D side-scrolling platformers, where Braid is completely different to Limbo, is completely different to Mario, is the same as Sonic.
All right. Let me give you guys a hypothetical. If Mario, with a permanent fire flower, in first-person perspective, jumping on platforms and stuff, is that a first-person shooter?
That's a first-person flower.
Technically, yes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Most people don't care. Like someone said earlier, you got a gun, it's in front of you, you're shooting. That's to most people. Yeah, that's really all that matters. So that's a shooter now.
I think that's ultimately what I was trying to get at, is that to everybody, like to the general public, it's one big genre, but to the fans of the genre, there's a lot more intricacies, and it's not as kind of shallow as it first seems. It's not all just gun shoot. There are differences in each of the franchises, and we all have our preferences, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's because but it does create difficulty when someone says, "Oh, have you seen this new game? I really love it," and then the response is, "What genre is it? What type of game is it?" And you say first-person shooter, but you're talking about Metroid Prime.
Totally.
So you tell your friend who loves Call of Duty, and he goes out and he gets Metroid Prime, and he goes, "What the fuck, man?" And like there's other examples like Portal and stuff like that. That it's not really, the genre is too loosely defined, I guess, with every genre. One thing we really need to discuss though is what I said at the beginning, that the Wii is the best first-person shooter.
The graphical prowess alone, you mean?
Yeah.
600 megabyte hard drive.
and speaking of the average age of players.
So you're talking about like the ability to point at the screen and shoot in that way, right?
I like any game where I can point a light gun or something at the screen and shoot.
Yeah,
I always have.
Red Steel, which was a launch title for the Wii, I think was the last time the genre was revolutionized. But the revolution was ignored.
You know what gets it for me though? I agree. I think the Wii could have been the best way of playing first-person shooters, but they decided to use the fucking bounding box.
Yeah.
Instead of just having the screen locked to your gun, which is what they should do, they have a fucking bounding box. So you all of a sudden all the control and sensitivity goes away.
The reason I think that is because if it's hypersensitive, you start looking like it's Michael J. Fox playing first-person shooters, and
whoa, too soon.
Yeah, is
that a part?
Actually, you guys have kind of let me segue into another question I've got prepared. Do you guys think that the future of the first-person shooter genre is more of a kind of virtual reality, like immersive experience where you are kind of holding a gun or do people always want to play these like their games? Do they always want to have like a disconnection where you're holding a controller and it's like as soon as you put a controller in someone's hand, it immediately becomes a game. Like it plays like a game. Do people want that part of it, or do they want to, be strapping on a helmet and turning the head around and using
there's a lot
gun?
of novelty in things like this new Oculus Rift that's coming up. The virtual reality headset paired with a gun. Have you guys seen that Half-Life 2 video?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That looks absolutely nuts.
They have like the Google glasses coming as well, things like that.
Yeah.
But
So
if you look at something like Mass Effect 3, which I haven't played, but I think out of all of it, you guys don't have a Kinect, right?
No.
Yeah, okay. With Mass Effect 3, it utilized Kinect. So you could make hand gestures and give vocal commands to your squad to give you that more immersive feeling. And it was supposed to increase Kinect sales, but it didn't.
But they just tacked that on, didn't they? Because Microsoft said you have to use Kinect.
Yeah. But it's apparently it's really good. Like, because while playing Mass Effect in the first two, I haven't played 3. I decided not to continue my Mass Effect because the second one was such a disappointment to me. But in the first and the second one, based on the AI and everything, the stupidity of my companions, I would constantly be yelling at the screen, actually. And so I thought to myself, this is a really cool thing for Mass Effect 3, because now when I'm yelling at them, move out of the way, they would actually move out of the way. But no one uses it.
Nah. And any game which forces you to take your hand off the controller at any point, that's sort of taking. I don't know. I think that's a really big. It's true. It just interrupts your experience. You got to take your hand off and do a hand gesture or something, or
it's not a good thing.
And the other thing too is Kinect doesn't work that great. No. It could, it has potential, but it's not. It's not what they promised.
Yeah, and the lag with Kinect ruins it for everything.
Yeah, it does.
Because when they first had it and it was amazing, it had a built-in CPU in the Kinect.
That's right, and then they made it on.
It was going to cost $500 to retail, so they had to remove the CPU, and now then the Xbox runs it.
That's why that ratio is not 1-to-1 like it should be.
Yeah, it has a 150,000 points of reading, but it's something like it only reads a really limited amount at a time.
Right. So I really like Mass Effect. I played through the third one, all of them, and I'll play through them multiple times. I'm never going to use the Kinect functionality. Ever.
Use the headset as well in the third one. Just plug your headset in or something and talk.
I'm not going to sit in my lounge room and talk to the TV.
So it's not because it doesn't really work very well. It's just that people don't want to play games like this.
No, because even then, I'm pretty sure you can use the headset to give you voice commands, and no one does it.
I'm not sitting in the lounge room and talking at my television.
The only game I've seen that does voice controls exceptionally well was Endgame. It was a Tom Clancy real-time strategy.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
And that actually worked because the voice commands were pretty limited, and they, you basically had Unit 1, Unit 2, attack Enemy 3 or whatever. So it made it was quite playable and it worked. It worked really well. But again, there comes a point where you just feel like a complete dickhead talking on TV.
The fastest way to communicate from your brain is out into your hands. Like it's just the easiest way of doing stuff. Saying things is much slower. Like in your browser at the moment, if you're running Windows, you can set it up to be completely voice activated, and you can set it up to be like open new window, go here, do this. But no one does that because it takes like 5 times as long to do anything as just moving the mouse and clicking there. So it's just a matter of what's more immersive and what's real. And people use their hands well. They're quite adept at using their hands quickly, and so that's just the best way to control it.
That's right, and that's why getting back onto this virtual reality concept, I think with shooters particularly, I think the hardcore are going to always prefer controllers. The Oculus and all that, it looks cool, and I'll probably end up getting it. because I've dreamt of virtual reality since I saw Lawnmower Man as a kid. But
What are you doing?
But you know what I mean. Like, I think virtual reality could bring, interesting ideas to, like, adventure games. But really, you're going to stand in your living room for 3 or 4 hours. I'd run out of steam. I'd be knackered by the end of it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with the Wii and Red Steel, because I got Red Steel 1 and 2. And also, there was another first-person shooter that I got on the Wii that used the thingy. It was so much harder holding my arm up for extended periods of time than it was just using the controller. It's such a superior way to play a first-person shooter. Like it's really, really precise and everything like that. But holding your arm up just for 3 hours, just you imagine just holding it, pointing at the screen for 3 hours, whereas I could sit with a controller and play for 10 hours.
Yeah, that's right.
I think this is going to come a bit from the field, but bear with me. When you hear arguments against video games by people who say it's so immersive, children are living out these horrible fantasies by immersing themselves in these roles. I think this generation of video games has really shown that when people play games, they know they're playing games, and they want to play it as a game. No one did connect. The PlayStation Move was a giant failure because people don't want to pretend they're a soldier. People want to play Call of Duty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting at.
There was a great article in the Herald a few weeks ago after the Newtown shootings in America about how they were blaming video games, of course, and the guy. Reporter for the Herald wrote an article about how he would love to get those people and get them to play Call of Duty for a week, and then take them to meet veterans from war zones.
Yeah.
So they could compare war stories. The veteran missing a leg after stepping on a mine. I'm going to tell them his war story, and then have this anti-video game person tell the veteran his war story about how he was in Call of Duty and he killed 700 people with his control pad.
And he only died 500 times.
So I don't think there is a level of immersiveness in games to the extent that people think there is, and I don't think actually people are ready to be immersed in games like that.
Or maybe they don't even want to.
It's not there's an army first person shooter training game.
Armour, isn't it? Armour 2.
It became DayZ.
Yeah, they used it to train the army. But actually, if you look at there's videos on YouTube and stuff of how they use it in training simulations, and they actually use it with immersion, virtual reality immersiveness. Like it's not the players don't sit at a computer and play Armour.
Oh, interesting.
They run with virtual reality goggles and they carry a gun.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say earlier. It's the only limiting factor is that if you're in your lounge room, you can't really run. You need a separate way to control
you got to run across
But
100
if you've got a massive warehouse and you actually build like obstacles in there, and then you map what you have built to like a virtual reality thing, and everyone is running around like physically doing the movement, then you could that could be a pretty cool game. But
that could be, yeah.
It's not something that you do at home. Like, it's a completely different thing.
Isn't that paintball?
Like laser tag, but it's instead of running around some dark, shoddy room, you're like in the jungle or whatever it happens to be.
Totally. That'd be pretty cool.
Like augmented.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I just imagine it now. It'd be full of children everywhere, and they'd be crying, and there'd be parents running in there. And,
Brian and Ben, you've been to this. It was the
IRL shooter.
IRL.
You've been to this. There's dudes who rock up in their SWAT gear.
Yeah.
There's guys who rock up dressed as 6 Jesuses. That's what it would be. You've been to that. We actually went to the IRL shooter. Everyone should check it out. IRL shooter. It's now finished. They're looking to launch their second run, but that's fully immersive in theory. with a few bugs and waiting for like 7 hours before you get your go. But
And getting rushed through the course.
yeah, don't go in there, don't go in there. But I have to go in there. But that's what happens. You know, you might get a bunch of kids, but then you also get all these guys who take it a little bit too seriously, and then there's guys who take it completely the other side of the cup dressing.
So, have we gone through all our first-person shooters?
Yeah, kind of
I think
progress.
we skipped a major one. We mentioned mods to Half-Life. How about Counter-Strike?
That's still
Yeah.
a world,
barely.
It is still good.
still a world-class game. And you know what? They tried to sequelize that. You know, they tried to release sequels to it. And people keep going back to Counter-Strike. So that kind of goes completely against that whole Call of Duty thing where people buy the new one just because everyone's going to buy the new one. People try the new Counter-Strikes, and then go back to the old one.
I'm far too intimidated to try and even.
It's hardcore, man.
Yeah, I went on it once and just I died so fast, and
then you wait.
I had no idea what was going on, and I went, "Fuck it, I'm going back to Call of Duty."
You wait to respawn in it, like you die and you have to.
Yeah, that's the most
It's
frustrating
like
thing.
you just die instantly and then wait. And like, wow, this is a steep learning curve. But that was originally began as like a private mod, like a custom mod or something to Half-Life, yeah, and it became an actual retail game. And it's still. When did it come out? Early 90s.
Yeah.
My wife used to play Counter-Strike.
Really?
Yeah. And it's still like that was an internet game as well back when, you know, internet was on 28.8 modems.
Why doesn't she play Call of Duty with us?
No, she tried because she can't handle a controller.
Yes.
You know, moving to the controller is
Yeah.
So what's Counter-Strike though? Is that just basically you're in an arena and you kill things?
No, it's like a team deathmatch thing. It's terrorists versus counter-terrorists. So you either play terrorists or you play counter-terrorists, and it's team deathmatch basically.
Yeah, in 1999 it came out, and it came out as a mod in 99 and then became a retail game in like a year later, more than a year later. And it's you have there's the same kind of thing as Call of Duty, capture the flag, team deathmatch, last man standing, and all that kind of thing. And then, you know, one team is the terrorists and they have to go and plant a bomb, and then the other team is the counter-terrorists and they have to go and defuse the bomb. And then I'm pretty sure you swap after you've completed it. And, you know, the counter-terrorist becomes terrorist and so on. And then you have to, like, compete to see who completes the thing in the record time. And the players who play it are ridiculously good. Insanely.
Yeah.
John Carmack, when he was working on Doom, he said Doom was originally supposed to have an elaborate storyline, and they prepared the Doom Bible, have this in-depth universe. But Carmack got rid of it all, and he said story in a game is like story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not that important. So I was wondering.
Come through now.
I was wondering, like, so basically, he's saying that at its essence, the first-person shooter is just about, you know, killing wave after wave of enemies. And I was wondering if you guys think that can there be substance in the genre when that's all people think of them?
I've always agreed with that up until recently.
Okay.
I've always thought that, like, I've always one who will just skip the cutscene. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But lately I've noticed
It's my kind of guy.
Yeah, I've never been interested, you know. They've never been any good. But lately, like, for example, Far Cry 3 was absolutely amazing. I thought the storyline and the way it was all delivered, the dialogue, the facial animation, all that stuff came together to give a really good story. And so I'm starting to change my mind on it because I think the technology is catching up with what people want to do. But you go back 10 years and look at storylines in some of these games. I mean, how can you take it seriously? You know, even like Max Payne, you know, like the guy always, he had this little smirk on his face the whole way through, and it was cool at the time, but you can't I could never take it seriously until
See,
now.
I love the story. I love story. I'm all for storyline.
Ben
That
likes
doesn't mean
JRPGs as well, though, so we won't hold that against him.
But that doesn't mean that the storylines have to be explicit or huge or involved. Like, for example, the first Legend of Zelda, I think, has a great storyline, but it's all inferred by the gameplay. You know what I mean? Like,
Legend of Zeldas don't have storylines. They have tutorials and then frustrating dungeons.
But I mean, like,
Yeah,
can those storylines translate into a game that's just about, killing wave after wave of terrorists or
Metal
whatever?
Gear Solid 4. That
Yeah,
game's
but I mean, like,
all-
specifically the first-person genre.
It's a third person. I'm trying to think of a first person. Well, Borderlands has a great storyline that's delivered really well.
Are you being sarcastic?
No, really. Like it's got
It is. Yeah, it is.
1 and 2 of great storylines, and they're delivered really well. Like they don't have cutscenes. The closest thing it has to a cutscene is it will flash up, like when you meet a new character, it will flash up a still image of that character with their name and then something funny about them. About them, like there's a guy named 3-Ball Harry or something, and it says he has 3 balls. But what happens in that game is, as you're walking along, someone will contact you on your FaceTime, your iPad, and just talk to you while you're killing stuff or whatever. So you can pay as little or as much attention to the storyline as you want. And the storyline is like quite interesting, although the first one was set on Pandora and was a little bit too much like Avatar, so I'm not really sure which one came first.
Okay.
I think Borderlands.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird to me that it's set on Pandora and you're looking for like an alien treasure and. But the second, the storyline is like really, really awesome and really like in depth and everything like that.
I'm a storyline whore, so I think they're great.
But I can tell you, Call of Duty, I've never been able to know what it's about.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. With the Call of Duty games, especially the Modern Warfare games, a lot has been said about how ridiculous those storylines are and unbelievable. And like the Russians invade America, and then like there's all these convoluted stories that don't seem to make sense. I mean, as I'm playing it, I really don't follow the storyline. I really don't care about it. Like, I look at it like, okay, so you're building the game, you want to have a diverse set of like environments. So the storyline has to take you to Cuba, and then it has to take you to like Africa, and then it has to take you to downtown Moscow or whatever it happens to be. So they've got to now build a storyline to get around these locations, and it's all just like it's convoluted, it's strung together, but I really don't care. Like, it's just like it's like here is why you have to be in Paris now. Okay, fine. I'm in Paris. Here is why you have to.
But actually,
so I mean,
sorry, go.
I've played first-person shooters with good storylines. I'm sure of it. I can't think of any now, but Portal, if we're considering that as a first-person shooter, but I don't think it's necessary. I'm just as happy without it. Some people really care about the storyline and like they're invested in the characters and stuff, but for me, it's not really that important. That's not what the game's about.
Oh yeah, like the Portal, the storyline in Portal 2 is fantastic.
I haven't played Portal 2. I want to play
it.
Portal 2 because that's the Portal out of every game I've ever played has the best storyline delivery, and actually, for me, that's what it's all about. Storyline.
And it's got the best voice acting ever by Stephen Merchant.
It's like all about storyline delivery as opposed to storyline for me.
Yeah, that's the same to me.
Like,
it's about the delivery.
Metal Gear Solid is all the Metal Gear games. They're third-person shooters, but they are the one end of the epitome of the worst storyline delivery ever.
Yeah.
Because all it is in that game literally you can move for 15 seconds and then watch 10 minutes of cutscene and then move for another 30 seconds and all you're doing is walking and then watch another 10-minute cutscene. And there are cutscenes in it that are about 30 or 45 minutes long. So that game, like, I never ended up knowing what the hell the storyline was about.
Fell asleep at the end.
And it gave you like this free download for the database for Metal Gear Solid storyline where you could read. Encyclopedia of everything. Like you can look up any reference.
It's like the 90s.
And I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't stand this shit. But Portal, the storyline is delivered so well. I'm really invested in it, and I always wanted to know what went on. I got to get Portal 2 and stuff, but I have so many games to get to first. Like it's the only reason I care about the Portal storyline is because it's delivered so well. All games can have a good storyline. Gears of War, I really love the storyline. And Gears of War, the way that works is you fight for a bit, there's a cutscene. You fight for another bit, there's a cutscene. Like, it's really poorly delivered, but the storyline is really good. And the voice acting is amazing with Bender.
Yeah, Bender's great in that. Damn!
Like my shiny metal ass. No, you're not being Bender in this game. But that, like, 'cause the storyline is delivered so well simply because the voice acting is so good, not because the actual delivery of the storyline is good. You know, Bioshock, I really love the storyline. I can't wait for Infinite to see how it ties into the other two.
I love that trailer with Nico Vega. That Nico Vega's on. That's fucking awesome.
Like but I know a lot of people I know gave up on Bioshock because it's so heavily immersive and the storyline is so important. And then there's like a couple of missions that are really first-person shooter, gamey fetch quest type things, so it like sucks you straight out of it. But I love them. Like, I powered through those annoying missions. You know, Half-Life is like that. The storyline is really interesting. The storyline is delivered in a unique way, but then there's sections of it where you're just like, oh, this is really cool. We don't go into Raven's home or whatever. It's so fucking scary in here. Oh my god, I don't know where to move next, and it's just a logic puzzle, and now there's an unlimited spawn zone. So it just becomes boring. The storyline can be important to the game depending on how it's delivered, I think, or how the storyline is. Call of Duty, they don't lay any emphasis on it. Battlefield, they lay no emphasis on it. In Doom, they laid no emphasis on it, and they just put, you are a Doom guy. Wolfenstein, there was a big emphasis on the storyline, actually. It was all about ending World War II or something like that. But it was in the days before they had cutscenes, and Metal Gear Solid had introduced the world to the cutscene. And so it was just written down in the instruction booklet that no one had because piracy was way more rampant even then than it is now. So, yeah.
All right. So, have we come to the end?
I think we got to ask our standard questions, although I can't remember what they are.
Well, I think those standard questions don't really apply here because we usually ask, how can we, is this game still relevant? How can we make it relevant for the future? But these games are pretty relevant at the moment.
Well, let's talk about Doom then. Let's ask that question about Doom.
Is Doom?
I think we'll all have the same kind of answer. I think
Doom and Wolfenstein still relevant in today's day and age?
Yes.
Well, their legacy is very relevant, but they're completely unplayable now.
Yeah, the legacy. You know, there's one thing with Doom. You know the Doom door opening sound effect?
Yeah.
Anyone can remember that? Yeah, it's in so many science fiction films. and that aspect alone, it's still relevant. Because what would we do without for door opening sound effects without?
I think early first-person shooters still relevant.
I think ultimately that we're all agreeing on the same level that that the first-person shooter genre more than any other is about technology and the way that technology evolves, and the more technology evolves, the more you can do with the genre. So going back and playing the older games, there's not a lot to offer besides nostalgic feeling and seeing where everything came from, really. So I guess my answer would be no, I would not go back and play these games at all, but they're still part of the history.
What about you, Kieran? Is Doom and those early first-person shooters still relevant in today's day and age? Did we lose Kieran?
Oh, he was like, screw guys.
Yeah. I think still relevant to people like us who are there to play them. But
Yeah.
Brian's right though. I mean, I have gone back and tried to play some old games, old Amiga emulators and stuff and whatnot. You just can't do it. You're better off not playing them, I think, and just remember them
holding on to your childhood memories.
Exactly. You go back and you can't help but compare it against what's out there at the time, and they often don't stack up. But a lot of good memories. There are a few games though that I think still hold up slightly. The original Perfect Dark was pretty good. They did the remake on the Xbox Live Arcade, which was kind of good. but it's
They
still
upped the graphics, yeah. They made
they
the
upped
graphics.
the graphics, but they didn't improve the control scheme. So
Yeah.
imagine basically it emulated the N64 controller. So you're
Ugh.
yeah,
The
you're
worst
right,
controller ever.
but it's the right analog stick basically emulated the C button, so you didn't have this full analog control. It was only left, right, up, down sort of thing, and very difficult to play. It was a hard game to play. Really, I could play it a lot more effectively on the Nintendo.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think the industry has a love affair with the early first-person shooters, and that's why every single console, modern generation console that comes out, they re-release these games on.
You're probably not wrong there.
I just think they're not really relevant for anything other than nostalgia purposes, because I have downloaded many of these games, and like I said, I played them once for the first 10 minutes and then quit, and I download them for nostalgia purposes, just like the industry keeps re-releasing them for nostalgia purposes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the Doom, Wolfenstein 3D, and not the kind of games that they're going to give that modern treatment to, where they improve the graphics. Instead, they're just going to release Doom 4.
Yeah.
Or the new Wolfenstein game. They're only relevant in the name only. Yeah, they're relevant in name only. You can get a bunch of sales on a game because it's part of the Doom series, part of the Wolfenstein series, or even part of the Perfect Dark series. Or GoldenEye was remade, like just the name is relevant but the games aren't. So, what can we do to improve, what can the industry do to improve the first person shooter genre, Ben?
Well, it's kind of doing it, really.
Yeah.
Games like Portal. That's for people who don't like Call of Duty or Battlefield, which is what first-person shooters are sort of synonymous with now. Like the games like Portal, it's doing it. Like I'm very happy with Portal. There's no glaring aspect that they need to improve for me.
Do you still have Portal?
I do.
On PlayStation or Xbox?
Xbox.
Okay, I'll get it and we can play the multiplayer.
Woohoo!
Ed, what do you think they can do to improve Call of Duties in particular?
Well, they're already perfect, obviously. No, well, I would say, and it kind of goes against their interests, but make bigger games, make them less often, like because they're really down this.
Yeah.
Every year they release a new game, like maybe cut that back to 2 years, but make it a big game. Make it awesome, release your DLC or whatever, but it's really just a money grab at this stage. They're just pumping them out like every year is a new game followed by 3 DLC packs at $15 each, that kind of thing, and then you have to buy a new game straight after that, so you never really have time to sink into it. Every 2 years with DLC makes sense because then people get bored after a while, they get new levels and stuff, and just spend more time on making the games really good, but I don't think they'll get to that stage until they have some actual competition. Because Call of Duty is not really competing with anyone at this stage.
Yeah, they try. Like Medal of Honor comes out and that fails and stuff.
Goodness, yeah.
So Brian, what could make you play first-person shooters?
I was gonna say that the genre has kind of stagnated, and I was gonna say I had prepared to say that there's really kind of nothing that they can do to fix it, but I think Ed kind of nailed it, that if they stop releasing the same game year after year, so we can actually see, bigger improvements rather than lots of little tweaks here and there.
There are series that do that. It's just unfortunately they're not the most popular series. So like BioShock was a huge gap between each game, and number 1 and number 2 are vastly different. Number 3 will be, from what we've seen, nothing like the other two. Another one is Borderlands, where there was 3 years difference or something. Left 4 Dead, there was quite a gap between the two. Unfortunately, we didn't play Left 4 Dead 2 here in Australia because what we got was better off Left 4 Dead. Okay, Kieran, what do you think they can do to improve the first person?
I think Ed raised a good point with the Call of Duty series. I mean, basically they're gonna hit market saturation pretty soon. I think they've hit their peak, and I think they're gonna start going downhill from here, just like the Guitar Hero series. It doesn't
totally
anymore because they just kept shitting them out constantly. You know, it was just too much. But I think, spend more time on making it a big deal, you know, and don't
Quality title rather than a quantity title.
Yeah, absolutely. Because look, I'm the type of bloke who's going to sort of not necessarily settle, but there's a good chance that I'll stick with the one shooter. You know, shooters aren't all that I play, but you know, I'll likely pick one up that you know all my friends have and whatnot, and that's what I'll stay with for a good year or two until the next thing's out. But otherwise, though, you know, I think Brian's right too. They've stagnated. I'm finding myself sort of getting a bit bored of shooters, and I'm not quite sure what it is. I can't put my finger on it. I think it's, you know, 15 years of shooting. You know, I'm starting to get a bit sick of it. I really don't know what they could do to fix it. I think they don't need to worry about people like me, though. You know, it's the
totally.
It's the younger, exactly, because it's all new to them, so they're going to love it. But you know, I mean, look, a recent example of a good game done rather well, I thought, was Halo 4, and I was really surprised.
I have that here, but I haven't played it.
Okay. It's very, very good. Make sure you install the graphics package because it's easily one of the best looking games on the 360.
Well, my 10-year-old really loves Halo. He's 11 now. Oh God, if he listens to this, he's gonna be calling him 10 all the time. But he's 11 now. He loves Halo. Halo is his best games, and he calls himself an Xbox guy, because he loves Halo. And his only criticism of Halo 4, which he got on the day it came out, was it was too short because he beat it in 2 days. And he beat it on normal. Normally he goes for very easy. But he was like, I'm going to beat it on normal because it was during school holidays or whatever. And he was like, I want it to last longer. But then 2 days later he messaged me and said, I just beat Halo. I was like, play it again on harder. But
I would agree with him though. It was a short campaign.
Well, my only experience with Halo is Halo 3, where I let Ben finish it for me by running along behind him.
Yeah, nice work.
I'd just be standing there and I'd teleport forward to the next checkpoint.
Halo 4's got some of the team, the Metroid Prime team worked on it, didn't they?
Yeah. It was a completely new team because it wasn't Bungie. Bungie's got their Destiny game coming out.
Yeah, it's ex-Retro members, I think.
Well, I think the biggest problem with first-person shooters is exactly what you guys have said. They come out too often in every series, really. What I would love to see is, using the Rock Band example, is when a new Modern Warfare or a new Call of Duty comes out, you can import everything from your last one into your new one.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Can with Rock Band. When you bought Rock Band 2, you could get all your Rock Band 1 songs. When you bought Rock Band 3, you could, get all your Rock Band 1, 2, Lego Rock Band everything songs, and you could play them. So if you got the new Call of Duty 17, Modern Warfare 6, Black Ops 3, version, and you could import all the maps, all the guns, and all the skins and everything into your new one. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be good, actually.
That's actually good.
The only negative I see from that is it fragments the player base a bit, and that's what I've seen with Battlefield.
But it actually raised sales on their old games as well, because people might want to buy those just to get the old maps and stuff. I mean, they do release old maps as DLC for some of these games.
But yeah, because Call of Duty, actually for Battlefield, I don't think it'll work as well, to tell you the truth. For Call of Duty, because the way Call of Duty works is, it's a majority team deathmatch, on the consoles anyway, and you sit there and you join a lobby, and then it randomly determines a map for you, and you can vote to skip. Everyone would have to have the map, and it won't randomly determine a map that people don't have. So it won't randomly determine the DLC maps if everyone doesn't have that DLC. You might be playing and you realize, oh shit, we're only going through the 9 new maps from this thing, and you might leave the lobby because some annoying guy doesn't have every single game or whatever. But my biggest problem with Call of Duty, and actually most first-person shooters, especially online, is I get so sick of playing the same maps over and over again. Yeah. And they have their little like glitches or whatever, their perfect tactics, which it just becomes a repeat of the same thing over and over and over again. And so it's boring. But that happens less and less the more and more maps you have. Like, to me, Call of Duty, each new version is just like Mario Kart 64. It only has 16 maps.
Yeah.
And I want 50 maps.
I agree, definitely having more maps. But you know what I've noticed? On Battlefield 3, for example, they gave players the ability to control, and they gave us servers and server browser and all the rest of it. And 99% of the people are just playing the one same map, Operation Metro Conquest. And that's
Awesome.
it's just the way. I remember Battlefield 2. You could vote for the map. Everyone just voted for Backstab or Bridge Too Far. It's just, I think people there's that fraction of the audience who likes to try something different or have more variety. But then I think there's the 99% out there who just love the same shit over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why COD's so successful.
I think Modern Warfare 2 had an interesting one where you're presented with a map, but you had the opportunity to skip the map, but you could only do it once. So everyone would often skip the first map, but they'd be stuck with the second map. But that was okay because sometimes, because there were 2 or 3 legitimately horrible maps there.
Yeah, there was in Modern Warfare 1, my favourite map, the one that was on the boat, for the longest period was my favourite map to play, but then that just became a grenade fest. Everyone would just change to full grenade perks and throw grenades over the boat, and so eventually everyone skipped it. I was never able to play it again because it would just be you use all your grenades and then you purposely die, then you use all your grenades and you purposely die, and you were getting 3 or 4 kills at a time by throwing grenades. It was dumb. Anyway, I guess that's all we have time for. I think this is actually the longest podcast.
Yeah, it's also we don't have a lot of swearing or anything like that. What the hell's happened?
I guess.
Motherfucker.
Got bitch, racism, sexism. We hate old people as well. Okay. Well, all right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you in a month with... What are we going to do next? God simulators.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Real-time strategies before they were strategy games.
Good excuse for me to play
Populous?
one of the
I'll be
Populous. There we go.
Oh,
What's
God.
actually, for someone who doesn't know those games, what's a good one to just play?
Populous. That's an actual god sim. You are a god.
No, but what one's actually good though?
Populous.
I played that back in the day. That was pretty good.
What
Nothing
can I play now?
before Age of Empires 3 was actually good.
Like
I just picked that up.
Civilization, any of the Civilization games that are good?
Is really
Yeah,
good. And Civilization is actually, Craig, he really loves Civilization. You could hit him up about.
But are they god sims, or are we talking...
They're real-time strategy. Well, actually, Civilization is a
It's turn-based strategy.
but it's still a god sim because you're a God Sim is just went the way of Doom Clone. They stopped being God Sims and they started being strategy games. So
Yeah.
So
Or
basically
is
Civilization
SimCity a god sim, or Sim Earth is a
yeah,
god sim?
they're God Sims for sure.
Sim Ant.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you again in a month. Talk to the
So
world.
long, suckers.
Toodaloo.
Thanks, guys.
All right. I gotta really go poo.
Yeah, I gotta take a leak.
I'll-
We're gonna have breakfast.